Yeah. Well, and unfortunately, when we get, I'm going to say, into the system. Now,
Mhm.
you were fortunate to get out of the system because
Yeah.
you sought out, whether it was intuition or you started to realize that this isn't working for me, and you sought out information that was, we'll call it unconventional, but really it's health information. It's what true
Yeah.
healthcare is. And there's a woman, she's a doctor at the Cleveland Clinic. I will remember her name before the end of this podcast, but she's amazing. And she did a TED Talk, and there's another video of her on YouTube. And she was diagnosed with MS.
Hmm.
And over the course of her diagnosis, she ended up in a wheelchair. So she got very sick. She was wheelchair bound. She not only was in a wheelchair, but she had to be inverted in a wheelchair,
Hmm.
and she couldn't sit up straight. She was like, she was at the Cleveland Clinic. She said, I
Hmm.
have access to all the best doctors, to all the best care, to all the best treatments. And she was getting worse and she couldn't
Yeah.
figure it out. And she ended up just dying. I got to remember her name. But she ended up, same thing. She started to search. She was like, let me change my diet. And she started to like eat higher quantities of protein and grass-fed beef and more vegetables and less grains. And she just completely changed her diet. And within 6 months, she was out of the wheelchair and riding a bike. And I think within a year, she ended up running a marathon. I mean,
Hmm.
Dr. Terry Walls. Let me go see if I can grab that.
Well, here, this is an image of what most doctors understand about, the actual human biology and plant biology. They have their head in the ground and they're hiding away because they've been trained not to look. They're trained. They have blinders on like those racehorses that, oh no, don't look at nutrition. Oh no, don't look at biology. Oh no, they're just drowning. Okay.
I need you to send me your graphics. Those are going to be good postings for social media. Those are good. Well, and I think too, while we want to, throw shade at medicine, this is what they're taught. The medical schools are funded by the drug companies. This goes back to Rockefeller. He
Yeah.
was like, we're not teaching anything but pharmaceuticals. In like, that was his big drive, was not to teach health anymore, but to move pharmaceuticals into the medical schools. So this goes back years.
Money, money,
Yes, the
money.
money and the corruption, it goes back years. And so we've educated and built multiple generations of medical doctors that cannot see outside their four walls.
Yeah.
And many of them, sadly enough, they are stuck in this, they call it standard of care. And that
Mhm.
if they don't follow, so standard of care is you're 40 years old and we need to put you on a statin for cholesterol, even though you don't have high cholesterol, which is also a farce. That could be a whole nother conversation we have. But if they want to put you on a statin and you decline it, you are going against medical advice, and that is charted. That is
Yeah.
charted. When you decline a medication that goes with their standard of care, even though intuitively, I don't need, they wanted to put 13-year-olds on statins. Like, it's just like you said, it's this.
Yeah.
So there are 0 nutrition classes in medical school. I'm curious. I know RFK is saying they're going to start to change that, but now I'm curious, will it be 2 hours now? Like, what will it be? Because, we also know that the food pyramid was also very much funded by big ag and these big corporations. And
Hmm.
I'm like, I've been teaching the upside down pyramid for 20 plus years. I
Yeah.
have a slide in, several workshops where I just took it and I was like, this is how we should be eating. It's the Mediterranean diet. This is how they've eaten forever. They've never changed it. This, like, when we look at longevity studies, eating a Mediterranean-like diet is like the healthiest thing we can do. It's not a fad. It's not fashionable. It's just a healthy way of eating. So it's interesting now that I'm like, so how much less do people trust the government? Because you're like, oh, whoops, let's just go like that. Whoopsie, sorry, we didn't mean to have it that way this whole time.
Well, and that's one of the things, and we look at, I don't look at American or Canadian because I'm up in Canada. I look at this as a global issue, and there's
Really
a group of individuals, we'll say, that have been controlling everything for a long time, and they're all about profit. And that's one of the reasons that we are so sick. That's one of the reasons our educational system is so twisted and has been twisted into, thinking in ways that, in normal civilization, we would not normally think. But it's that control and that money and that power that have been controlling the globe. And right now we're looking at some really dark times globally, but it's always darkest before the dawn. And the small changes do actually matter. If we're looking at a global environment and global warming, every time a volcanic eruption happens, a certain amount of ash goes into the atmosphere, which reflects sunlight. So in reality, with all the volcanic activity globally, we should be going into an ice age. Yet I'm in January in Alberta, where it's normally minus 20, which would in your guys is like minus 3. Okay, so really freezing cold, and I had above freezing by 10 degrees yesterday. Okay, so that shouldn't be happening, but our planet is actually shifting. The Inuit in northern Canada, who they lived in igloos in ice houses, their whole life was watching the seasons and the stars. They've been saying for a decade now that the ice isn't melting, it's moving, it's shifted. They're getting more daylight than they ever have before in the thousands of years that they've been monitoring this, because that was their life, understanding this. Our whole planet was knocked off its axis, its 90-degree axis, millions of years ago. And every volcanic eruption is creating a wave. And just like throwing a pebble in a pond, you create waves, and it's shifting our planet, the crust of our planet, back to that 90 degrees, where most of the land masses are going to be in the temperate zones and not in the high Arctic. There's amazing things that are going to be coming to light on both an energetic side as well as a physical side of how our land is going to be changing. There's going to be some wild things, guys, and most people are going to go, oh my God, it's the end of the world. But it's a new beginning of what's going to be possible for the human species on our planet.
Okay, I've not heard that. So let me just repeat and see if I understand it.